Welcome back. You're watching Newslink. Now, the Momentum Unisa-CFVI, a tool designed to measure the financial vulnerability of South African households, has revealed a grim reality in the fourth quarter of 2022. For more on this research and its findings, we're joined by economist and researcher at Momentum, Johan van Tonder. Thank you, as always, for joining us this morning, Johan. Maybe just share with us some of the biggest outcomes that the research revealed about the level of strain that households in South Africa are currently faced with.
Yes, good morning, thanks. It's indeed very grim. Load shedding again, as you probably can see, sitting a little bit in the dark here. But the Consumer Financial Vulnerability Index for the fourth quarter showed us a drop to 47 points from 49 in the third quarter and 51 a year ago. So what that means is that consumers being under huge strain in the fourth quarter. Normally what we would expect in the fourth quarter is the festive season sales and so forth, but we haven't seen that come through because of consumers being on a financial stress. And if we can unpack the index a little bit, it consists of 4 sub-indices measuring the vulnerability of consumers in terms of their income, their expenditure, their savings, as well as their debt servicing. And what we've seen is that all 4 of them dropped below the level of 50 points. So that means vulnerability increased severely in the fourth quarter. And it all started with, on the budget side, what we can see is that compared to all the other quarters in the past 18 months, what's happened is that consumers' expenses started to exceed their income on a much more regular basis than in the past, which meant that they just couldn't keep up with all the price increases, the interest rate increases, load shedding, and so forth. So their budgets were under severe strain. And as a result, they had to forfeit some of their saving. And that's both short-term savings in terms of emergencies, as well as the long-term for retirement. And as a result, they couldn't save, they can't spend. They started to default on debt repayments more compared to the past. So that's in a nutshell what sort of happened in the fourth quarter of last year.
What does this say, Johan, about the attitude of the consumer going into 2023? Do you think that the research and what you've just described to us means that this is going to be the continued trend, unfortunately, going into this year?
Yeah, so after what they expect in the first quarter, and you're quite right, they're expecting the trend to continue. In fact, what the research revealed in the fourth quarter is that consumers were very unhappy. They are not feeling secure in terms of their finances. And what they've done, or some of them at least have done as a result, is they reverted to what psychologists would call retail therapy. So they went to do some purchase or impulse buying, which is going to catch up with them later on, or I would rather say not them, all of us are consumers, it's us. And then they expect, for instance, the inflation rate in prices going up still at a rapid rate, though a little bit less than in the past, but still in a rapid rate. Expect unemployment to continue, economic growth to come down, both domestically as well as internationally. So the expectation is not for an immediate improvement in terms of how they feel in terms of finances, their finances.
Yeah, with that, Johan, what do we expect are the biggest risk factors to then be for consumers or households, the things that they fear will most continue to put pressure on them this year?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. If we look back at the beginning of last year, it was fuel prices and food prices that topped the risk factors, making them feel vulnerable. But that's changed. It's now load shedding, political instability, corruption, as well as increased food prices, the third one. So we can see how the risk factors changed over time and as the year progressed. And if we look at what they expect for this quarter, in other words, the first quarter of this year, it's basically the same, except for higher interest rates creeping up into the fourth place there. So if we can, in some sort of a way, reduce load shedding and political instability and the increases in food prices, it would mean that consumers would feel much better in terms of the finances, as well as maybe seeing an improvement if we can work on those three factors.
Mm. And obviously, we do anticipate that with the load shedding and the ripple effects that that's had, including the geopolitical events like the Russian invasion, the factors that have put pressures on households are going to remain for a while. You know, things have become very unpredictable, Johan. So it would be difficult for one to say to a household, just ride out the wave, things will get better, because at this stage, we don't know when that will be, do we?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. It's the political instability and corruption all over the world. You correctly mentioned the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which actually put a lot of strain on consumers via higher food and fuel prices emanating from there and spilling over to us, and we just don't know when that's going to end. And it's going to be very tough to say just to ride it out, because what we've also seen is that inflation has increased by 6.9% last year on average, while salaries increased by an average of 5%. So already there's strain. And to ride it out, it's going to be very difficult because consumers already made adjustments to their budget, like cutting out expense, luxuries, and so forth. So the only thing we can do as consumers is actually to basically rely on each other, to depend on each other and assist each other, because that's what we're here for as human beings, to help um, our our friends and family in need, and even those we don't know, because it might just happen that if we can help them now, they might be able to help us going forward. So maybe a little bit of more solidarity amongst all of us as consumers, that can go a long way to get through this difficult period.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for those insights. That is economist and researcher at Momentum, Johan van Tonder, on the financial challenges that are currently faced by South African households. And as you've just heard, it doesn't seem like things are about to get any better. One of the reasons